Naomi.
Naomi, thank you.
Naomi, I don't have you.
Nice.
Sorry.
Thank you.
To me, down here, down.
Naomi, just one this way.
Down here, Naomi, please.
My cousin here at the end.
Yeah, thank you.
That's not fair.
Yeah, just right
That's
there.
not fair.
Here again, please.
10 seconds to go, gentlemen.
Okay, one more here, please. Thank you. Nice. Okay, I need one here, right?
Just right there. Thank you.
Here, thank you very much. The last one. Last one, Naomi. Mrs. Watson.
Thank you.
Please, thank you very much.
One last one here, please.
Okay, thank you. We're going to start the conversation now. Thank you.
Thank you.
You step away. Thank you. We're good for 10.
Thank you.
Thank you. You step away. David, you can start.
Hi, everyone. I'm David Darcy.
This is on.
He says he's David Darcy, and for once he's telling the truth. David Darcy is an American journalist who's written for publications still extant and some that have faded away, has been a broadcaster with National Public Radio, and his byline occasionally appears from time to time here in the National. The lady to his left needs no introduction beyond the one he's about to offer. Thank you both for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Peter. I don't think Naomi really needs an introduction, so what I will say is welcome to Abu Dhabi. And I know you all have lots of questions, probably very familiar with her films, but I want to really take this to the present. You're in a position right now where you're doing lots of interesting work. You must be getting dozens of scripts, or your agent must be getting dozens of scripts, and you actually have probably an opportunity to choose what you want to do. So when you read a script, what are you looking for? What's guiding your decisions? What kind of work what kind of writing are you most interested in right now?
Well, there's so many elements that you look for, and over the years, my priorities have changed a little bit. Now that I have 2 small children, you tend to think about where it's shooting, first of all, and how long for. But I mean, really for me, the main element is the director. I feel that film is a director's medium, and so if you put yourself in the hands of a great filmmaker, you're onto a good thing. And then really from the first 5 pages, you can tell whether or not the material speaks to you. You may not know why you're doing it until halfway through the shoot or even later. But you know, there's so many things that factor into making a decision, like I said, where it shoots, how long for, when does it take place, you know, and of course the character has to be a good thing as well, the story of, you know, what kind of woman is this?
You tend to gravitate toward dark, demanding roles. I don't picture you in a romantic comedy, although who's to say that won't happen? Is that still the case, though? The darker material interests you more?
It does. It's fun to play. It's definitely fun to be in those kind of movies. And yeah, I'm not a fan of the genre romantic comedies, except for when I'm on airplanes, funnily enough. That's the only time I want to watch them. They just, you know, they're just so formulaic, and it's hard to get that right, I think. But having said that, I am always looking for lighter material, particularly now as a mother. I'd like to do something that my kids can actually watch at some point before they're grown adults. But like I said, it's harder to come by, and I think people tend to think of me as that, you know, the girl who plays the nervous breakdown very well. I'm not the comedy go-to girl. But yeah, always looking for lighter stuff, but more on the quirky side, not the traditional romantic comedy.
Your mother put you in a drama class at the age of 14. Do you remember that?
I do remember that. It was payback for moving me from England to Australia. I bribed her. I was very unhappy about it, being moved at that point in my life. You know, just sort of settling into my peer groups, and Australia, just like the end of the earth. But in retrospect, it was one of the greatest things she did for us. It was just such a great place to, after about 6 months of being there, yeah, just the land of opportunity, I think, and great people. And
we'll take a question from the audience. If somebody can, bring a mic over here, please. There's a question right here. But let me, before you start, let me ask one more question. You live in New York,
yeah.
and people tend to associate the motion picture business with Los Angeles. Can one still, is New York a place where you can still have a full career and not be too far away from where, you know, decisions are made?
Well, I think now the world is getting smaller, as we all know, and yeah, I think, I mean, I'm just a great believer of you should live where you want to. It just so happened I was living happily in LA, although there are things missing in LA. Do you live in LA?
I'm from New York.
Oh yeah, okay, there you go. It's a little devoid of culture, and it is the one industry town. And so when you go to New York City, you feel the life force, and you're connected to the rest of the world immediately. And also, I met a New Yorker, and as you know, and New Yorkers it's their natural birthright to despise LA, and that he did. So he wasn't going to be coming to to LA, so I moved over there, and also my brother already lived in New York, so it felt like a very natural move for me.
Let's take a question from right here, please.
نعم مرحبا بك أنا كريمة الوسلاتي من الإذاعة التونسية.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, you can interpret this. Sorry.
I didn't know these were here. You can think of your next questions as we're doing this.
Okay. Say that again.
Sorry.
مرحبا بك في أبو ظبي أنا كريمة الوسلاتي من الإذاعة التونسية. تحدثت منذ قليل عن أهمية المخرج في تحديد اختياراتك وفي تحديد العمل الذي ستمثلينه. ماذا غير فيك دافيد لينش في مسيرتك إلى حد الآن؟ هذا السؤال الأول. سؤال ثاني، أين تجد ناومي واتس نفسها أكثر، في الإنتاج أم في التمثيل؟ والسؤال الأخير، فكرة عن العمل الذي كنت بصدد تصويره في الأردن، بما أننا سمعنا أنك كنت هناك. شكرا.
Okay. Only 3 questions?
Okay.
Great.
I'm going to forget one of them. I'll start with the last. Yeah, I was recently filming in both Jordan and Egypt, 3 days in each place, and it's about a story that you may or may not be familiar with, Valerie Plame, who was the CIA agent who was outed by the Bush administration. That's with Sean Penn, and it'll probably come out next year. The first one was about David Lynch. Yeah. He changed my career, hands down, and I'm constantly thanking him. He's a great friend, and he basically met with me after years of being in LA and you know, having near moments, but the film's not working out for whatever reason, and this was just a wonderful meeting. He spoke to me, he asked me questions, and it wasn't like a regular casting. And he just offered me the job and gave me an incredible role where you play 2 characters that are so opposite from one another. So, you know, it's rare that you get that in a whole career, much less one film. And then the second...
Could you just, what was your first question?
That was the first. There was a middle question.
There were 3. Oh, do you feel more comfortable as an actress or as a producer?
Oh, well, definitely as an actor, but I have done, played the producer in a few different movies, and basically it's more collaborative, and your voice is depended on for some of the creative decisions made, and that's fun too.
As before we move to the next question, Valerie Plame is a living person. Her face was in newspapers, on television for quite a long time. What's it like playing the role of a living person whose face people know and making that a character of your own creation?
Oh, very daunting, because it is such a powerful story that, you know, we all know and are very connected to, and she made such a powerful impact on that in that time, and you want to do the best, particularly if that person's still alive. Playing someone, you know, real, period, but if they're alive, especially. And I actually spent some time with her, and what an incredible woman. So it was very nerve-wracking going into it, and we'll see how.
Now we had a question back here, woman in red. If we could get a microphone to her. When will that film be? Is that film finished shooting?
Oh, it's finished shooting, yeah. Although we may do some additional shooting soon, but it won't come out till mid next year, probably.
Great. Question, please.
Rama Rashdi from the French Press, written and radio. We have French actresses such as Juliette Binoche and Marion Cotillard that went to work at Hollywood on American movies. Are you willing yourself to work with French directors? And if so, whose French director, will be you willing to work with? Thank you.
Well, yeah, I seem to do, the French like my films, sophisticated audience. Yeah, I've met with some French directors, and now, of course, my brain's not working. And of course, both those actresses I love and have met with them too. Now let's think. Give me some reminders.
Well, Alain Resnais, who is now in his 80s, a master, who has a film here. There's also...
Really?
Oh,
wow.
yes, yeah.
Great.
Yeah. Jean-Pierre Jeunet.
Wow.
Also
I
with
haven't met with them, no.
Benoît Jacot. Patrice Lecomte.
Oh, yeah, brilliant. Patrice Lecomte.
There's Godard, Jean-Luc Godard.
Well, of course, Godard. Yeah, I haven't. I would love to work with any of those said directors.
Okay. Another question right here. Let's get a mic over here. While we get the mic over there, I want to ask you, you've been in a number of remakes of classic films and, again, had to recreate roles for an audience that knew those films very well. And you're now going to shoot the birds, or has that begun shooting?
No, it hasn't begun shooting. It's been something that we've been in talks with for several years now. The script isn't right, and so you don't remake that film unless it's completely right.
But when you are remaking something, how much do you immerse yourself in the original, and at what point do you just have to cut loose from that and make another movie? Do another, create another character?
Yeah, it's difficult because, I've done, I think, 4 or maybe even 5 remakes now, and it feels, there's a huge amount of pressure, particularly when you take on things, something like King Kong, where Fay Wray, made that role iconic. The movie and the role is in, the character is in people's mindset. So you watch it the once, and then you hope to just escape from it and let go and try and make it your own. Then you have a director like Michael Haneke with Funny Games. I don't know if you've seen that, but he wanted to recreate every single shot. And so, although it was a remake, it felt, like we were doing the same thing, and I felt quite trapped by that, that decision. But it was a great discipline, and he is an incredible director with, it doesn't resonate, that film, with everybody, but for me, I liked what it was that he was trying to say.
We had a question right here, please.
Hello and welcome to the United Arab Emirates. I'm Humoyne from Emirates News, Welcome to Abu Dhabi. My question for you, Naomi, is you've also done a lot of controversial roles which address a lot of social and political issues in society. The Middle East is just opening up to different films which are expressing a lot of the views in the region. What advice do you have for producers and directors in the Middle East to expose their talent to the world?
Well, I think that, it's great to be able to, film is a great medium, and it's so accessible, and it's just, to me, one of the greatest art forms. And to tell stories is a wonderful thing, to enter into the hearts of people and reflect your own story and therefore connect with other people. So to me, to use film as a conduit is a brilliant thing.
Yes, sir. You have a mic. Could you pass him the mic? Microphone? Gentleman right in the center. Thanks. What was it like shooting in Jordan? Tough?
It was great. We shot there just for literally two days, mostly in the airport and then actually in hotels with the brilliant backdrops. Cairo was interesting. That was like we were out on the streets more, and it was, like just crossing the road, which felt like it was a highly dangerous act. And I had to do that several times, and in the filming, and traffic is just not stopping for you.
I'm sure we have some people in the audience who've
can relate to
experienced
that.
this. Yeah. Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, what were your first thoughts when you read the script for Mulholland Drive?
I remember thinking, wow, how do you wrap your head around this? And you got to remember that this was originally it was going to be a TV pilot. It was a 2-hour pilot, and what you saw as a film was not all there in the pilot. So we shot a good 20 pages later on down the track. But having said that, there were just like 3 or 4 remarkable scenes that I just thought, oh my gosh, if this comes through, this is going to be an amazing opportunity. And particularly the one scene that everyone seems to remember, which is the audition scene, where she's going for the part and she's just rehearsed it very badly with her friend, and then she's in the casting room, and people remember that scene, and I just have to remind them that it was all there in the writing. It was just one of those fabulous moments, and both on paper and on the screen.
Can you take your head? They want pictures of you. Thanks. That's okay. Yes, please, right here. There's a mic right next to you. There you go. Yes.
Hi, I wanted to know, does changing your dialect for different movies come naturally, or is it something you have to keep working on?
No, you do have to keep working on it, and it's there's things about it that makes it very helpful in that you're getting, when you're putting your character together, just like a pair of shoes or a hairstyle, a wig or a costume, bringing that dialect in helps you get closer. But it is an additional thing that creates more work and stress. But I think having grown up in England and changing schools several times, and therefore my accent was always, I just have an open ear. My brother, who lived in exactly the same places as me, has the same English accent that never changed. Mine seemed to just change wherever I went. So I have a sensitive ear. But I still have to work on it every time I play an American. And even now when I play English, I have to get rid of any Australian twang or American.
What's the hardest accent to do that you've had to do so far?
Well, it's when they get, pretty much always with an American accent, I've done a standard one. I haven't done, you know, specific regions really. A little bit of an East Coast one in Haneke's movie, but really sort of a Midwestern has been all that I've done. But yeah, I would love to. I would love to do a Cockney accent or a Northern accent. I think I'd do well with those because I grew up hearing them.
Questions? Right here, please. Good.
Hi.
Hi, this is Manjusha from Gulf News. I just wanted to know, how was the experience of working with a director like Woody Allen?
Oh, a total dream. I love him. It's been a dream of mine. You know, I mean, you grow up watching his films, and they're just in your head, and you go back and watch them over and over again. And so it was sort of like a career milestone for me. I had thought about it for such a long time, and actually had been asked to do a film with him a couple of times before, but you know, scheduling conflicts or something like that didn't allow it to happen. And so this time, it was finally the right time, and I just cherished every moment. If I could just remember everything that he said, because literally, you know, everything that comes out of his mouth is hysterical. He's just a truly great comedian who doesn't care, you know, if it's, you know, politically incorrect, or he just goes out there and says it. He's genius.
Yes, right here, man with a striped shirt.
Hi.
Hi.
What do you think the best technique to use is when trying to get into like a character's role?
Well, I think it's different every time, depending on what kind of character you're playing, and who your director is, and if there's the space for you and time for you to do the things you need to do. Or, I mean, you know, I work with symbols. I've used particular techniques sometimes, and then other times you have all that in your head, and then you just kind of throw it out the window and just, you know, hope that you're in sync with the other actor. But yeah, you can't get too rigid in your technique, because things are not always going to go the way you want them to go on the day.
You're working with a lot of well-known, respected people now, directors who have real track records, Woody Allen, Peter Jackson, David Lynch. Do you keep your eye on young work that's coming up at festivals, people who are just emerging to see, you know, what the new talent is?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah, I mean, whoever is I mean, I'm always looking out for new talent, and like I said, the directors are the ones that they're your teachers, and if I've seen a film by a certain director that I love, I'll and I really like it, I may even write a letter, or yeah, in a workplace like here, when you run into these people, it's always great to connect with them. And you know, Alejandro Gonzalez, I mean, I guess there are younger ones than him as well, but he feels very young and modern, you know. There's always great new talents coming up, and it's good to connect with them.
Anybody on this? Yes, sir, right here with the white shirt and the very large polo insignia.
Hello, Naomi. My name is Sultan El-Belushi. I would just like to know, would you love to do a foreign language movie, apart from French, like Arabic?
I would. I mean, I don't know how good I'd be. I would love to. I mean, it's one of my great regrets in life that I haven't, you know, got 3 or 4 languages up my sleeve. It's terrible, and when you go to other places, non-English speaking places, most people do. So I have a huge amount of shame about that. Yeah, I mean, you can learn. It would have to be a small part, though.
Let's take another question from this side of the room. Yes, sir.
Hi, Naomi. A couple of questions. First of all, what's your view of Abu Dhabi and the UAE? And secondly, how do you cope with the pressures of fame? And can you keep your public and private life separate?
Well, I've just arrived this morning, and so far, so good. Yeah, the hotel is just magnificent, and it's just great to be here and exploring another new place. And I hope I get out into the city and see a bit more tomorrow. And in terms of fame, I mean, I really can go about my life, and there are days when paparazzi stay outside our house and days when they're not there, and there is sort of a code of ethic in New York that is much more respectable than in Los Angeles, whereby they see you, they photograph you, they stay with you for a couple of blocks, and then they go on their way. In Los Angeles, they stay with you and wreck your day. You know, ordinarily, I think I look very different than I do in films, or, you know, who I am on the red carpet when I've had professionals working on me. And, you know, I just walk out of the house. If I've got wet hair, I've got wet hair. If I've got no makeup, that's just how I live. And so, I mean, oftentimes I go completely unrecognized.
Back there, please, with the hand. Right back there.
Hi, my name is Celine, and I'm from Shooting Stars. My question to you is, if you hadn't been an actor, what career path would you have taken? What would you have done in your life?
I really have asked myself that many times, because there were many years along the way before. I speak of my career in post and pre-David Lynch. And there was a long time before David Lynch, but and a lot of questioning, and, you know, just sort of fantasizing another life. But I just love what I do, and so it was really hard to imagine. But I thought, you know, I'm going to have to be in the film industry in some capacity, because I do love the community of film, so I thought about that, and I also love to travel. I also thought about working with children. I love children, but just as I was starting to get fed up, something would come along that would show some kind of promise and keep me invested. And thankfully, I stayed.
What was it about, is there any way that David Lynch works with actors that made this such a pivotal experience?
No,
what's special about him as a director?
Well, he works intuitively. In fact, I mean, that's the same in the way he casts. He doesn't, you know, he doesn't want you to audition. He doesn't. He just wants to see who you are. And in fact, he really only meets with 4 or 5 people, and he chooses via a process of elimination, you know, from a pile of photographs. And, you know, he connects with something in the eyes. So he saw my photograph, and that's why he called me in, and then we had a conversation, and I was just sort of taken aback and surprised he wanted to know so much about me. And then once we started shooting, he really doesn't say much. And like with his films, there are no questions that are answered. It's all left for you to decipher. And that's what happens in the process as well. You try to piece it together, and you're asking the questions. Does this mean that? And, you know, what's the blue box? And what's the key? And he sort of just kind of delights in your torture and wants you to answer all the questions yourself.
Over here. Yes, the man in the back, right there.
Hi. I'll go back to Mulholland Drive again. I mean, it's one of the movies which amazes us with its mood and mystique, and this, I believe, personally, it's one of my all-time favorite movies. And I believe this kind of a movie is something that makes us go back to the theaters again and again. And about that amazing interview scene that was there. My request to you is, do you remember anything about that? Any line do you remember? Can you read it for us? That audition scene. Yeah, at least a little bit.
I can't remember the lines.
Maybe you need to just rent. You need to rent the film again. That might.
You want us to reenact it? Shall I do it with David?
See, I never knew the lines, so it's not going to work with me.
Okay.
Let's get
another request. In that case, can you tell us just any memorable experience that you had while shooting Mulholland Drive?
What, like an anecdote?
Anecdote, anything.
Yeah. No, gosh, you always forget anecdotes when you're sort of, particularly of so many years now. But I do remember the filming of that scene, that we came together in that space, and I just remember David, his face just lit up from the first rehearsal, and I think everyone in that room had a comment on the situation, because we were all actors and we'd all been through a casting process of some sort at some point in our career, probably, many, many times. So we all could find a way in. And I just remember it was just the right amount of awkwardness and tension, and Chad Everett, it was, isn't it? Making out with him and having his orange makeup smudge all over me. But he was so brilliant. He was, it was just brilliantly cast, brilliantly written, and it was fun to play.
Man right here with his hand up.
Last question.
Yeah, last question.
Hello, my name is George.
Hi, George.
Is it true that working in Michael Haneke's movie is difficult and emotionally draining for the actors?
It's he's a brilliant director, and I like all of his films. It was definitely, there were great challenges in that process, but I loved it all. Like I said, having to do the same shots created our choreography and blocking, and so it was very scary, because I thought, oh, I'm just imitating another actress, and he convinced me that that's how he did all of his films, that the actors' blocking was created by his choreography before the actors even arrived. So I did feel like I was bound, which indeed I was. But I love what he was doing, and so and his whole body of work. I just trusted him, and I felt very inspired by Michael. And I recently just saw his newest film, White Ribbon. Again, he's a genius, and all the directors that I respect, rate him as one of their 5 best. So I really enjoyed it. I felt honored to work with him too.
Well, on that note, thank you all for coming, and thanks very much, Naomi, for talking to us.
Thank you. Thank you very much.